Aloha. Welcome to the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. We're so glad to have you here. At Como Mai. Now here's our podcast host and award-winning author, Michelle.
Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. Once again, here I am. My name is Michelle Ebalaroza-Kawano, and we are here welcoming Marleen Mour, all the way in Australia. In the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast, we're here where we bring real people, real stories, where we welcome with aloha everyone with affirmations and actions, leadership and love, overcoming obstacles, health and healing, and acute awareness. So if you're joining us for the first time, that is what aloha is here on the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. Aloha has so many meanings here in Hawaii, but this is what we bring. And today, Marleen is here with us, where she will be bringing her award-winning health and fitness expertise. So Marleen is a health and fitness and wellness speaker, coach, and founder of the Permanent Weight Loss Movement. Marleen is known for boldly challenging the diet industry and helping people heal from the inside out. Okay, so Marleen, before we go into the Aloha Always framework, which we always do with our guests, I'd love to give you some space to share your story and what led you into this work.
Oh, all right. Well, what led me into this work, I think, like a lot of coaches, is a struggle that persisted in my life for a very long time and finally figuring out the solution to it. So I grew up with a lot of issues in terms of self-worth, like most of us do. I don't think anybody survives their childhood completely unscathed without having their worthiness affected somehow. So I grew up very insecure and in quite an abusive household and really not knowing how to deal with all the difficult emotions of life. And so I learned to eat all my difficult emotions. My mom, bless her soul, would, give me food when she noticed that I was sad or down or depressed or stressed. And so I learned at a very young age to eat the fear and the sadness and the loneliness and the unworthiness. And it worked for a while. For a long time, it was, working in terms of numbing the difficult emotions or kind of distracting me from them. But over time, as I'm sure all your listeners will understand, it started creating a second problem, which was essentially obesity and an emotional reliance on food. And I made it my life mission once I realized that all the diets and all the self-restriction and self-punishment wasn't working. I set out to figure out what would work. And I think at the time I was doing it because I thought my worthiness depended on my weight and how attractive I was to men. But I figured it out. And then, of course, I realized that it's not the most important thing. But I did figure out how to get the weight off permanently through self-love, not self-punishment. And it's been, 14 years. The weight's been off and stayed off even after becoming a mom.
That is amazing. You know how you say, like, eating and finding that everyone, I think they don't realize that food is an addiction just the same way as anything else, alcohol, whatever. And that self-soothing, picking up, I think I'm going to have some ice cream right now. When you're feeling bad or something, like when you're feeling bad and I want some chocolate, right? It is that. And people
Or
don't realize.
stressed or overwhelmed or bored. Like there's so
Yeah,
many emotions that we turn to
right.
food to
So you
to
turn to
numb,
food.
but we're not actually addressing the root cause of the emotion. Do you know what I mean? We're just
And it's not
numbing.
like you're hungry, right? You
No,
have
it's
to
not a
think about it.
physical hunger. No, it's a
Yeah,
it's a spiritual hunger. It's an emotional
yeah,
hunger. Yeah, but we treat it like a physical hunger.
right. So good, so good. So I actually went through domestic violence, and at my heaviest, I was like 250 pounds. And I realized that I was carrying a lot of that pain in my weight because It just felt better to just eat. It felt better to just be like, it was comforting to eat,
Yeah.
to just be like, this is good. It's quieting. It did feel comforting to just continue to eat. But
Yeah.
so I completely understand what you're saying,
I
where
think we
your
get to
mom,
a point where food becomes our only source of happiness, and that's the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like I always tell people, you're not unhappy because you're overweight. You're overweight because you've been unhappy. And food's been the
yeah,
only source of
yeah,
joy or feeling good. Yeah.
right.
So weight loss is very much like a happiness project. Do you know what I mean? It's not just healing. It's not just stripping off, the old patterns and the old bits of your identity that were never meant to be you.
Hmm.
But it's also, yeah, there's so much self-love involved in the journey. So it's
Yeah,
not just emotional healing. Yeah, it's literally a change of identity. It's stripping all the bits that were never meant to be you, the fears, the survival patterns, like eating instead of speaking up. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And yeah, learning how to be the real you and have the voice and set the boundaries and say no and put yourself first, right? Because these are really all the things that we're eating, right? The fear of speaking
yeah,
up or frustration at ourselves because we didn't stand up for ourselves or we didn't say no. We said yes when we wanted to say no. We didn't leave the toxic situation. So, like you said in the example you were given about your own life, it's us almost taking out our frustration on ourselves and eating the sadness and the unworthiness that stems from all of that.
right. Yeah. And like, instead of going from food and instead of healing, turning to alcohol, and then
Or
you end up
drugs
drinking.
yeah,
Right. And
or
then
excessive
you
work
don't,
or
right. You don't address the root, but you just turn to another drug, right?
yes.
Another
Yeah. And
addiction.
and you see a lot of people do that. Yeah, they'll go from one addiction to another, but they'll never deal with the root cause of why they need this addiction in the first place.
Correct. Yeah. So
Yeah.
good. So let's go into the Aloha Always framework. And the first A in Aloha is the affirmations and actions. So what beliefs did you have to unlearn before true transformations could begin in your own life?
Oh, there's so many. I might get you to repeat the question for me one more time.
Okay. So what beliefs did you have to unlearn before true transformation could begin?
Oh my goodness, so many. You ready? We're gonna write a book in this podcast. The beliefs I had to unlearn were that my worth depended on the number on the scale or that I would love myself when I'm a certain weight. Actually, what I needed to understand was in order to get the weight off, I had to love myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it wasn't when I lose a weight, I can love myself. That's what I thought all along. When I lose it, then I'll be worthy of loving myself. Then I can stop beating myself up. But it was the complete opposite. And that's why it wasn't working for
Yeah.
over a decade of my life. It's when I loved myself that the weight came off. The loving myself was a prerequisite. I think that's a very, very big lesson that I had to unlearn and learn in a different way. And so that looked like, no more diets, no more extremes, no more starting tomorrow. I'm never drinking wine again. I'm never eating carbs again. I'm never having sugar. All of that extremeness that, if you said that to somebody you love, that would be considered abuse. If you said to somebody starting tomorrow, you're not allowed to eat carbs anymore, right? We'd
Yeah.
all recognize that as that doesn't feel right, but we do it to ourselves all the time. I another lesson was I had to learn to not lose the weight because I hate myself, but lose it because I deserve the best, like because I love myself. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So there's a lot of shifts in the way that I was thinking about this entire journey. And I had to unlearn the pattern of leaning on food for emotional comfort or using it as my rock and my stability. And I had to start learning how to create a sense of certainty and stability that wasn't based on anything external to me. And I think the other belief that I had to let go of was that food could emotionally soothe me. Food has no capacity to emotionally soothe me. So yeah, I had to let that go and start processing my emotions instead of eating my emotions. Yeah. On the psychological level, I would say those were the massive beliefs that needed to shift.
That's so good. I love what you said about I'm gonna love myself when I'm at this weight, instead of being like, no, I'm gonna love myself now so that I can get down to this weight, like that. That was the same
Yeah.
way with me because I actually had to tell myself I deserve more. I deserve better.
Yes.
Loving myself first was really important for me to make the changes that I had to make. And it was the foundation for getting me out of that domestic violence situation. Because if I didn't love myself first, I would have never left, because I deserve better, right?
Amen. It's that recognition that, yeah, I deserve
Yeah.
better. And I think a lot of people get confused and they're like, how, Marlene, like, how do I love my body when I literally don't like how it looks? How do I love myself when I don't like what I see in the mirror? And I think on the one hand, you got to recognize you're way more than a meat suit, right? Like
Uh-huh.
your body will die, but like you're going to live on, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So you are not your body, first of all. Like there's so much more to love than just the physicality of us,
Right.
right? We're all going to get old. We're all going to wrinkle away. We still want to be loved and not just based on our looks. So we're
Exactly.
way more than our looks, first of all. But the second part of being able to love yourself now is understanding that loving your body doesn't mean settling. Do you know what I mean? If you're at a weight that you're uncomfortable at, that's unhealthy for you, you can still your body and accept that this is where I am. And I love my body for protecting me every time I shove too much toxic sugar in there and I had to store it as fat so my organs don't get poisoned. I love my body for every time I stressed it out. And because again, like storing fat is a survival mechanism. Your body's surviving. Your body's looking out for you. So changing the resentment towards your body to a gratitude that your body has survived you and the abuse you've put it through, you know? And yeah, switching the meaning from accepting my body so that it doesn't mean I'm settling, but it means I accept, but I recognize I deserve the best.
Yeah. Very good. So, what daily actions matter more than diet, pills, or discipline? What daily actions matter more?
Respecting yourself, I would say.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
Good.
and that means lots of things. It means, doing what you say you're going to do, like keep the promise you make to yourself. And if you're not sure you're going to keep it, don't make the promise to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like respect yourself enough to do what you said you're going to do simply because you said you would. But it also means like set boundaries with people, like don't let people just take endlessly or walk all over you or, like not speak up and then go home and punish yourself for it. Like
Mm.
respect yourself out in the world in every interaction. And you're not going to come home frustrated and pissed off at yourself. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that's part of, again, what loving yourself is. It's learning to be that parent for yourself where you're going to set the boundaries and you're going to hold the boundaries and you're not going to dishonor you to please someone else.
So good. And that just leads us right into the L, love, leadership and love. Why is self love, not willpower, the foundation of permanent weight loss?
Because there's so many different parts of this. Self-love I could talk about for hours upon hours upon hours. I'm just publishing a book right now called The Power of Self-Love. But yeah, love is such a broad topic, but it's really comes down to the relationship you have with yourself. So that means like are you there for yourself when the difficult emotions come up? Or do you turn your back on yourself and go, here, drink a bottle of wine, I don't want to listen to it. Just turn on some TV and go numb yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like perhaps our distracted and busy parents did. I don't have time to listen right now. Here's some candy or here, go watch some TV. So when we realize we're doing that to ourselves, that's what we need to shift. And that's where the self-love comes in. It's being that friend to yourself, recognizing that when you were born, you were given you to look after and to love, and that you are the only person who's been there through everything from the moment you were born. And you're the only person who will be there through everything with you until the moment you pass. And so you need to learn how to be your number one priority, how to fill your cup first, and how to deal with it, like how to process emotions instead of eating the emotions. Yeah. How to deal with the conflict and actually address what's causing this emotion. Like, what's causing this emotion is I didn't stand my ground. I let somebody take advantage of me. Okay, so do I just go home and eat some food? Is that going to fix it? No, right? So it's self-love is kind of like developing that relationship within yourself where you are the divine mother and divine father you always needed and perhaps never had. The mother who's going to be there to listen. You had a tough day at work. Somebody crossed a boundary. Boss disrespected you. You're going to be there like the healthy mom, open to listening without judgment, without shame, without giving advice right away, just holding space for yourself and allowing yourself to process the emotion and cry if you need to or yell if you need to before dad steps in. And dad goes, all right, like, let's fix this shit. We need to action some stuff. So all of that falls under the heading of self-love. But even everything that we discussed today around like emotional eating or processing instead of eating your emotions, that's still only like 1/3 of the equation to permanent weight loss and 1/3 of the equation of what we define self-love as when it comes to weight loss. So
So good, so good. All right. So how does leadership over self show up in health and wellness?
leadership, how does it show up in self? I think it shows up in the recognition, like I said a few minutes ago, that you're responsible for looking after you. You were given you. But it's also recognizing like no one is coming to save you. No
Yeah.
one's coming to save you. No one's going to come to diet for you. Not that I'm telling you to diet because diets don't work, but nobody's going to come and cook the food and get rid of all the problems. And like, it's you. You have to learn how to lead you. And that's not by beating yourself up and calling yourself fat and starting tomorrow you're not allowed to eat carbs. It's the opposite of that. Good leadership is the opposite of that. It's the encouraging and the uplifting, right? We know the difference between a good coach and a bad coach, or a good leader and a bad leader. And self-leadership is also about like no longer insisting on holding on to the victim mentality and the stories of your past that have allowed you to feel like a victim, and instead realizing, well, I've been my own parent since the age of 21, and therefore I need to lead the way in doing the healing that's required. I need to be the one to go back and reassess, what beliefs I inherited and whether they belong to me or not. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
self-leadership.
exactly. I always told myself, like, when I was at my heaviest and I was like, I need to stop. And I told myself, no one's stuffing this food in your mouth. No one's force feeding you, and you didn't get here overnight. This was over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you did it to yourself. So now it's time for you to undo it yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a lot of that where you're like, no one's going to come here and rescue you. No one's going to change this for you. It's
Yeah.
you taking care of you. So
And it's
you're,
not the easiest thing because like what you said just a second ago, like it didn't happen overnight. You've been doing this day after day after day. I think the difficult thing that people don't realize is when you've done it for so long, it becomes an unconscious pattern, like a memorized pattern that you just slip into without even consciously choosing it. You're just like, what's this cookie doing in my mouth? What's my face doing in the fridge? Like, how did I get here, sort of thing. So it's the difficult part in making the shift and learning new habits is making it a conscious awareness again. Do you know what I mean? Instead of just autopilot, I'm stressed, I go to the pantry. Yeah, so it's recognizing that it's a pattern you've literally memorized unconsciously, like driving a car somewhere without remembering which turns you took because you've memorized it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's unmemorizing and memorizing something new and helpful.
yeah. But the one thing that I did realize is that if you can get into those patterns and into those grooves that got you into that bad place, you can also do the same thing to get you into a good place.
Amen. Wise words. Yes.
Yes. Overcoming obstacles, the O in Aloha. What resistance did you face when you began challenging the diet industry?
The challenge that I faced was first with myself, in that I didn't think anybody would understand self-love for permanent weight loss. I thought, self-love wasn't really a popular topic out there. I was like, maybe I'll wait for it to get a bit bigger and then, like I'll, put this program out there, really push it. And I remember I had a really good coach who said to me at the time, he was like, wait for somebody. He was like, why not you be the first? And I was like, that's a very good point. And I think as I've put it out there, there's definitely been a lot of, not in a bad way, but curiosity from people as to what I mean by self-love for weight loss. Like, what is that? What does it look like? Because again, can be such a vaguely said word that's just so easily thrown around. But I wouldn't say that, let me have a think about this for a second. What is the biggest obstacle in putting this program out there? I don't feel there has been an obstacle. Besides that, people just wrapping their brain around self-love, even within the program, people might take a month or two where they're like, I still don't see the point. I still don't see the point. But once they get it, then it just makes complete sense. So I wouldn't say I've gotten any pushback from the industry itself. And again, because like we don't use any products, we don't rely on anything outside of ourselves. So this is just all about you and your relationship with you.
I think for me, like when I was changing the way that I was eating, changing the things that I was doing, even though it was better for me and healthier and everything, it was other people seeing it like the weirdest thing, but like it was a bad thing, right? Like
In what way?
like not okay, so also now you got your nose up in the air kind of thing, or like I like
Like you
almost
think
like
you're
I got
better than us?
snooty, right? Like now I got snooty or something. And I'm thinking, no, I'm just taking care of me, right? And
Yeah.
that's that self-love, the part where I knew I had to do better for me. And even like when I decided that I was going to stop drinking, I was like, no, I just need to do better for me? And then it was like, oh, so now you can't drink with us. Like as if it was a bad thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. In some cultures, like, eating or being big or drinking is part of the culture, right? Like it somewhat defines the culture. And I've seen with not all my clients, obviously, but maybe about 15% of my clients who come from cultures where it's almost expected to be overweight. Like it's part of the identity. Like every woman in the family, every auntie, every cousin, everybody is about, like 50 to 100 pounds, maybe more overweight. And then, yeah, when a client is then starting to lose weight, I actually tell them, don't tell anybody what you're doing. Just let this be something you're doing for yourself. And, when you lose the weight and they start to comment, then see if you want to tell them or not. Because I've had so many clients have their family, just like you said, kind of be like, what, like, are you too good for us? Like, we're not good enough for you. And
That's
they
what it
take it
was.
personally as though you're trying to turn your back on your culture and your family instead of just looking after yourself.
Right. Yeah. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. It was like they looked at you like, so what's with you now? Right.
Yeah, same thing with me when I wanted to, start my business. My mother was like, why? She was like, why would you leave a comfortable corporate job? Like she looked at me like I was crazy. Do you know what I mean? She didn't get it.
Yeah.
But again, in that generation, you stayed in one job your entire life and that was it. So yeah, people don't have to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And we don't need to tell everybody either. That's another thing. You don't need to be telling
That is
everybody. Yeah.
that is true. So what is the first compassionate step for someone stuck in emotional eating or shame?
The first step it depends on the individual client, I think, and the story behind it that led to it. But the first step for somebody struggling with emotional eating is to get rid of the shame around it. Yeah, to get rid of the self-judgment because usually they're stuck in a cycle, of feeling bad and unworthy. So they eat and then they feel bad and angry at themselves for eating. And so they eat and it just kind of sticks in a cycle. So, or gets them stuck in a cycle. So I think the number one thing to do is to start chipping away at the shame and the negative self-talk, the self-berating that goes on, because I think that's really where it stems from. Again, relationship with self. So yeah, go in and
Yes,
deal with the
that
shame.
self-talk. That's it.
Yeah. When you
When
realize
you're
nobody talks to you more than you do every day, and you look at the impact of the words of other people, yeah, then you got to pause and take a step back and look at the impact of the conversations you have with yourself.
Yeah, that's hard sometimes because it gets loud in there sometimes.
It does, yeah. But there's a really good book. If your listeners are interested in reading an awesome book, it's called Outwitting the Devil. It's by
Mm.
Napoleon Hill. I'm pretty sure it was written in 1910. It's still a bestseller till today. But it talks a lot about the voice in your head and how to quiet the noise, so to say. But yeah, you gotta take back ownership of your brain. I think, yeah,
That's powerful stuff. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, right?
yes,
Perfect.
yeah, very, very
Okay.
good.
The H in aloha is health and healing. Can you explain emotional self-soothing versus emotional self-regulation?
I think they're the same thing, just different terms.
Self-soothing and self-regulation.
Yeah,
The same.
soothing and regulating the nervous system, pretty much the same thing. But usually, when we say, regulating, we're talking about using your breath to regulate your nervous system. So when you're anxious or fight or flight or in freeze mode, you tend to either hold your breath or have really short, shallow breathing. Whereas a calm nervous system is associated with long, deep, slow breaths. So if we're talking about just regulating, like on the run, you notice like I'm feeling anxious, there I'm holding my breath, then yeah, then it's very simply, taking control back of your actual breath, which is connected to your nervous system, and learning to, like slow it down, get it back under your control. But emotional self-soothing, I would say, would be taking it a step further and not just regulating the nervous system, but actually looking at the emotion and the message of the emotion. So allowing yourself to feel the emotion. Let's say the emotion is anger. So I would allow myself to express the emotion somewhere safe. I might go scream into a pillow, right? Let it out, scream as much as I need to. And then once the anger is out, then I can start to reaccess my logical brain and extract the lesson from that. And the lesson might be, like I was mentioning earlier, oh, you're angry because, somebody crossed your boundaries, or you're angry because you didn't hold your boundaries, you didn't speak up. And so self-soothing is not just processing the emotion, but then, like I was saying earlier with the mother and father, actually then actioning the thing that needs to happen to remove the cause of the emotion.
Right. I see. So emotional self-soothing. So it wouldn't be like, I'm gonna go get some ice cream today. Would that be emotional self-soothing?
No, because you're not
No.
actually addressing the emotion, right? Yeah, I think the first step to emotional self-soothing is being able to name the emotion.
Okay, I see.
So, like, I'm feeling resentment, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated. Yeah, that's always the first step. You got to name it first,
Hmm.
right? And if you're skipping that and you're just like ice cream, like I
It's
always
kind of
say
like
to my
masking it
clients,
then, right?
yeah, I always tell my clients, like sometimes, I'll get a message from somebody and they're like, Marlene, I'm just about to chow down on this bucket of KFC chicken, and I'll give them a call and I'll be like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, and I'll say, all right. I'm like,
And
that's fine.
chicken is the answer.
Chicken is the answer. Yes, deep fried chicken is the answer. And I'm like, cool, that's all good. And I take them through the steps. I'm like, let's go through the basic steps that eventually become automatic to you. But I tell them like, hey, let's just go through the steps. If you still want to eat the chicken after, go for it. But usually by the time we go through all the steps and they've processed the emotion, that need is no longer, they don't want it anymore.
Yeah,
I like the strangest thing. They're like, I actually don't want it.
right. You know,
So
I
yeah.
used to, so when I was right before I got into the domestic violence relationship that I was in, the red flags were there, yet we don't see them, right?
Mhm.
Because it's just so nice. I don't know why we don't see them. Now that I look at them and I'm out of the relationship, I'm like, how did I not see that? Right?
We didn't want to see it. We wanted to believe.
We want to believe,
We
right?
wanted to believe.
But so one of the things that I catch now that I'm out was that I would say, if I had something to process, I would tell him, all right, I need to go process, right? And I would literally go out and I would sit somewhere quiet and I would process. I would sit and I would think about things and I would process. And he would get irritated. Huge red flag, which I didn't want to see. But I would go and I would process. Then, like, he would get irritated or he would tell me, "Why did you have to take so long? Why did" I know, right?
Wow. Because
And
you went
so
and poured attention into yourself instead of him. He was like, what about my attention? What were you thinking? What were you thinking about? Yeah. What were you thinking about behind my back?
what were you thinking about while you were processing?
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Yeah, just when you said the word processing. But yeah, and so those red flags, right? I was like, shoot, I should have seen it way back before I even got into the relationship. Because processing was like something that he couldn't even handle.
Wow. It's a low bar. We've set the bar low. I
I
was just
just was
sitting.
like, he doesn't understand what processing is. I'll explain.
Yeah.
He'll understand later.
Yeah. If they don't get it by now, they're not
We
going to
can
get it.
always
Yeah.
help them, you know. That's how I thought. No, you can't.
I'm
No, I'm
going to
just
fix
kidding.
him.
I'm gonna
And I'll
help
heal
him.
him. I'm going to help him.
We can always help.
I was speaking with a friend yesterday. I went out to dinner with a friend and we were talking about red flags. And she was talking about big red flags. And I was like, I know, they're waving in our face. And we're like, I feel a breeze. It's a nice breeze.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I just feel a nice breeze. What is that? That's right there in your face.
I tell you. And it's like now
Yeah.
that I look at that, I'm like, wow, that was pretty big.
Yeah, but that's on us. Like, I look back and I go, that's on you, Marlene. Like, he showed you who he was loud and clear. And I
Yeah,
still went and built a fairy tale in the sky, little castles in the
right.
sky about, who I want him to be instead of who he
And we're
is.
all in
Yeah.
dreamland.
Yeah. Disney. I blame Disney.
Yes, we talked about that before, Disney.
Yeah. I blame Disney.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're still in H. Health and healing. How do trauma, stress, and generational patterns impact the body? So we're back in
Ooh.
there because now that we're laughing about Disney, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, we'll scratch that out.
How do trauma and stress?
And generational patterns impact the body because I know that the body keeps the score, right? And so we have to learn past those things.
Very interesting. Have you ever heard the term survival patterns?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the survival patterns are patterns that we develop, at a young age or in a traumatic relationship that we feel like we need to be this way in order to survive this scenario. So, for example, this is a very common example. Say you grow up in a household, and when you're young, you're not really sure that, love is unconditional for you. And you think like love is based on me pleasing my parents. And so you develop this survival pattern where you're constantly trying to please people and, walking eggshells around people, make sure everybody's happy because like your survival depends on your parents. But then you grow up and that's not really the way to go through life as an adult, trying to please everybody, right? So a survival pattern is any pattern that you picked up, like if your parents, beat you for speaking up, you learn to shut the hell up. Do you know what I mean? Not speak up. That's a survival pattern. So those patterns are definitely generational. Do you know what I mean? Where like a daughter will watch her mom be abused and her mom will not talk back or anything. And so she'll learn, to avoid getting hit or to avoid this, don't speak up. So those sort of behavioral patterns we definitely inherit, and even how we manage stress. So for example, I saw my mom yelling and screaming and, breaking things when she was stressed. I had to teach myself a healthier way of dealing with the stress, but we inherit and we learn all these patterns through just observing. Like it's literally the only modeling that we have as children is what we pick up. But the impact of holding on to stress in the body, and again, stress is a necessary part of life. So are all the emotions. Like anger has a purpose as well, but it's a holding on to the emotion that starts to manifest in the body. Yeah. So this is why the emotional processing is important. You process the anger, You process the stress, it goes through, it's done. But you don't process, you hold on to the stress, you sit in the stress, you overthink about the stress, right? And then you're holding on to it. And that's when it starts to show in the body in ways that communicate to you quite specifically what the problem is. Quite specifically, depending on where it's showing up. But when it comes to weight, and again, it depends on the health type of the individual that you're speaking to. But there are some health types that protect themselves when they feel any sort of stress. Their body protects itself by building layers of fat. And that's for long-term energy reserves. It's also to fight. Do you know what I mean? And to actually put a layer between your skin and your organs. Do you know what I mean? In case you get stabbed or the cold weather or something like that. So ongoing stress, like when it comes to weight, for example, your body will just interpret stress as, time of famine, or stress, it's winter, we need to store. Yeah. But it won't, like, the overall weight will just go on everywhere. The weight itself won't tell you what the problem is, but ongoing stress and emotions that you hold on to will show up as actual physical ailments. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like thyroid issues or cancer or neck problem and that's where your body's specifically telling you have an issue around forgiveness, or you have an issue putting on too many things on your plate, like overwhelming yourself, not asking for help. So yeah, it is very, very interesting what the body communicates to you. But all of those things that you mentioned, generational trauma, that can be broken. And I feel like we have a generation around today that is breaking or changing the path for generations to come. And the stress and all those difficult emotions, there's nothing wrong with them. They just need to be processed instead of held onto.
That's so good to process that, because I feel like you said, people have held on to things for too long, and it is time, right? It is time that we start breaking those generational curses. So
Amen. I remember I went to an energy healing session years ago. I didn't know anything about, any of this energy healing stuff, but one of the things he asked me to do was to scream. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I just want you to scream. And I was like, we're in an office building. I was like, there's other companies around. I was like, what do you mean scream? And he said to me, he was like, I just want you to scream as loud as you can. He said, this isn't just for you, what you've been through. He was like, this is for generations of women in your lineage that never got to express. And when I started to scream, I don't think I'd ever screamed so much. And then after all the screaming was out, I just broke down in sobs. It really, really felt like it was for generations
yeah,
of
yeah,
women. Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Very
That
interesting
is so
stuff.
good.
Yeah.
So the last A in aloha, acute
Yes.
awareness. Why does one size fit all? I hate that word. No, I'm just kidding. Why does the one size fits all fail in health and fitness?
Because it doesn't. Because there is no one size fits all.
What are you talking about? Right? That's what I said. Whoever said that?
If it was one size fits all, surely we would have discovered the magic diet, the magic way to eat, that makes everybody thin. But yeah, I've seen it time and time again. I was just speaking to a client today who lost 17 kilos and then just hit a plateau for the last 3-4 months. And we looked at her epigenetic results again, and we discovered, it has nothing to do with the food. She actually doesn't need to change anything in the food. We need to help with her liver, because her liver is got a lot of toxicity that it's trying to filter through, and it's stopped fat burning altogether. So her weight loss right now has nothing to do with diet or food. It has to do with healing her liver so that her body can prioritize, again. So there is no one size fits all. I see it all the time. In fact, if I'm going to be completely honest, when I launched my business, I recommended the same thing for everyone. I recommended every client do what I did with food and exercise to lose weight. And it did not take long for me to realize this shit's not working. It was working for maybe 30% of my clients, but there was 70% it wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go and understand epigenetics and the uniqueness of every individual body. Just like our fingerprints are unique, what our body is designed for is unique. What we're supposed to eat and how we're supposed to eat and when we're supposed to exercise, all of that. There's a specific thing our body was designed for. My body's different to your body. So once I started understanding that and using epigenetic testing to help my clients, that was a complete game changer. We have like a 98% success rate because now we can, instead of just guessing and hoping it's going to work, we can figure out exactly what's right for this client, what was their body designed to respond to, and then start implementing that. And that's been a complete game changer. So if somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, oh, how do I know, if this diet is right for me? Simply answer this question. Like, did they ask me more than 5 questions? Did they ask me more than my height, my age, my weight, and my gender? Because if they haven't, then it's not for you. It's just generic. So just like if you go to a financial advisor, if they only ask you 2 or 3 questions and then start telling you where to invest your money, are you going to trust them? No. But if they get the full picture of your financial situation and then start advising, you have more trust, right? So it's the same exact thing. Before you put yourself on any sort of plan to try to get the weight off, you need somebody who cares enough to try to understand your unique body and your epigenetics before just throwing things at you that they're going to charge you money for and then want to just guess around and hope that you're going to be patient. You want to know, you want to get the blueprint. What's right for me? So that when you start putting in some effort, you start getting some result. I think that's the most important thing, because we all know how quickly we lose motivation when we put in effort and there's no benefit or there's no result. So there is no one size fits all. We're all very unique. No 2 people are the same. Even twins do not have the same epigenetics. They might have very similar genes, but their epigenetics is different. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
what is epigenetics?
A very good question. Yes. Epigenetics is a study of how your genes are switched on or off based on the environment that they're in. Yeah. So this client that I was telling you about a few minutes ago, who like just stopped losing weight, no matter what we do, her body's not losing weight. It's because it has another priority right now, which is her liver. Yeah. So your body is going to prioritize your health above weight loss always. I kind of
I
lost track
see.
of what we were saying. What were we saying a second ago?
No, I was asking what is epigenetics? Because you mentioned
Yes. So
epigenetics.
epigenetics was able to help us look at what's impacting her body right now. So her body right now is impacted by not just the food that she puts in, not just movement, right? That's what most people focus on. Right now, her body is not responding to these 2 things because there's other things in her environment that are preventing fat loss. So we look at all the things in our environment. So that could be our emotional state. Yeah, the stress, for example, that's going to impact whether our body is burning fat or storing fat. So if her body is under stress because her liver is under stress, then it doesn't matter about the food and the exercise. They're not the only things impacting. In fact, they're not responding. Her body's not responding to that at all. There's other factors that are affecting her genes that we need to look at. So epigenetics looks at way more than just food and exercise. It looks at about 8 different factors of your life, including like the climate that you're in. We have some clients who, if they're too cold, like physically cold, they're not going to lose weight. They need to walk around sipping on hot tea all day, hot water bottle, when they climb into bed at night, then the weight comes off. Yeah.
That
Time of
makes
day that
sense.
they exercise. Yeah. Time of day, even that people exercise. Some people exercise in the morning and they're like, oh, morning, right first thing in the morning, you're supposed to exercise. No, for some people, their body responds to it by storing fat because they're interrupting when their body's getting rid of toxins in the body. So their body's not able to do that. And then their body perceives it as stress, increases cortisol levels. So instead of losing weight from exercising in the morning, they're gaining weight because they're not working with their chronobiology. They don't know the impact of all these things on their body. So that's what epigenetics is, understanding the impact of your entire environment on your body.
Wow, excellent. That's so good.
Thank you for asking
Okay.
that question.
Yeah, so good. We have to do a whole other one on epigenetics now.
Yes, yes, yes. We can talk about that for another hour.
So, how does awareness of triggers create freedom?
Ooh, what a good question. Yeah, if you are not aware of your triggers, you're going to be ruled by your emotions.
Yeah.
So, triggers are awesome because any trigger is a little like alarm bell to go, hey, there's something you need to address here. There's something you need to heal here. So, for example, I'll give you a very simple example. I could send out an invite to 100 women to my next, Ditch Diets masterclass. And 90% will be like, yeah, awesome, sounds good, I'll be there. And then you'll find like one or two people who are like, are you calling me fat? Yeah. They've all received the same message, but a few of them are triggered by it. Is that because I meant to offend them? No. It's their interpretation of it. So when they get triggered, they can come at me and say, you're trying to call me fat, and get angry at me, but they're going to miss understanding, oh, wait a minute. This is a trigger for me. Why is this a trigger for me? Because I was bullied when I was young, or because of this, or because I feel that I'm unworthy because of my weight, right? So every time we react to a trigger instead of pausing and getting curious about it, we miss the very important lesson that is required for it to no longer be a trigger.
So good. Yeah. So, like I said before, I was in this domestic violence situation, right? And thank God I'm out, I'm safe, and everything like that. God has a way of placing people together. And sometimes I think he's very funny. But anyway, I am now married to an ex championship boxer. Being in a domestic violence situation, he puts me with someone who knows violence, which is kind of strange. But the thing is that because he knows violence, he knows how to handle violence.
Knows how to control it.
And he knows how to control it.
Interesting.
And so it is a perfect match. God knows how to handle those things. And I didn't see that before. I was like, why would I be with someone like that? Right? Like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
amazing. But anyway, he comes out one day and I'm on the computer and I'm doing some work. And he goes, there's a boxing movie. You want to go see it? I said, sure. When I'm done with this, let me know what time. He goes, yeah, it's about 9:30. I said, okay, I got time. We end up at this movie. The movie ends up being a movie on domestic violence. Now, he forgot to tell me that part. We go, but it's those triggers, right? I was like, and it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was trying to tell him, I'm like, oh, this is so real. And a lot of the things that was happened in my relationship, and how he was talking to her and the things that he was saying. And it was so bad. And I was like, this is real, this is so real. And then he said something that really got to me, because he goes, oh, it gets worse. I'm like, you knew about this? Like, what? Yeah, right. Why didn't you tell me? Right. And we're like already in the middle of this movie. And I'm like, you know about this? I'm like, so I was kind of mad, and I was like, not understanding, why would you do this to me? Feeling, was this a trick? And so after the movie, we come home and he said something, and I got a little short with him, and I realized that it wasn't him, it was the movie. And so, realizing those triggers, right? Realizing the thing that it wasn't really him, it was the movie. And I had to catch myself, and I did tell him, I said, okay, hon, you heard that right there? Because he was like, whoa, what was that? You should have, and I was like, that was a little wrong.
Yeah, you had to emotionally soothe yourself and take a couple of deep breaths and remind yourself you're safe.
And then so I said, okay, so I didn't expect to get triggered like that. I said, but right now I can totally understand. Like, I'm coming from a healed place, because before, back in the day, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be able to discuss this with you right now. But I would honestly have to tell you that the next time you know something like this, you should let me know.
Yeah, you need to communicate with me in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In advance. I said, I don't mind seeing that kind of a movie, but to see it without knowing, that was a little hard. And then he was like,
without emotionally preparing.
And then he said, oh, I knew what happened because she's a boxer. And he actually knew her, right? So he knew of the story, but he didn't know that they were just going to show so much of it in the movie.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I understand. But next time, let me know. But yeah, so, hearing that, and the awareness of those triggers. But yeah, knowing the triggers and knowing how to react with them, it does create that freedom. Like knowing that, hey, wait, that was a trigger right there. It was so freeing for me to be like, hey, I'm coming from a healed place because I'm not crazy. No, you don't. I'm
Yeah.
not reacting right now. You know, that kind of feeling, right? So, so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like we said earlier, just naming it, right? And going, "Oh, I'm feeling anxiety right now." Right? That in itself is empowering as opposed to
Yeah,
just responding to the anxiety. Yeah.
so good. So when the listeners revisit this episode, even tomorrow, later on today, even a year from now, what do you hope stays with them?
I hope they will remember that they need to love themselves for the weight to come off, not the other way around. And I hope that they remember the importance of learning how to be there for themselves to process rather than eat their emotions.
So good, so good. This is such a good, good podcast. Marleen, thank you
You
so
made it
much.
great, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this powerful and healing conversation. Ah, look at those big heads. And for those listening who want to continue this journey with you, where can they connect with you?
I think the easiest place to find me would be Instagram or Facebook. Just really look up my first name and last name. I shouldn't be too hard to find. There's a dot between my first and last name on Instagram. Or you can just go to thepermanentweightlossmovement.com and you can see when our next Ditch Diets masterclass is on and jump in and hear about 3 keys to making permanent weight loss easy.
Nice. All right. Ohana family, let this conversation remind you that healing begins with awareness, self-love, and truth. It comes from inside. And Marleen, thank you for walking in obedience to your calling.
Amen.
May God continue to bless your work and your hands and multiply the lives that you touch. Any
Amen
final
to that.
words for our listeners?
No, I'm just super thankful for this opportunity to connect with you. We've known each other for a while, but this was a real pleasure. So, yeah,
Thank
thank you for the
you.
opportunity. And God bless you and your podcast and every single person listening today.
Awesome. All right, to everyone, God's blessings always. Walk boldly in aloha and ahui ho. Until next time. Mahalo.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us here on the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. Before leaving, please hit that subscribe button. God's blessings always and ahui ho.